Okay, ladies and gentlemen, how about a round of applause for the wait staff this evening here in the pavilion? At this time, I have the great honor and privilege to introduce our guest speaker this evening. Major General Timothy Zadalis. We could talk for hours on his career. We could talk about him growing up as a U.S. Air Force dependent, with his father being a 33-year retired Chief Master Sergeant in the Personnel and Senior Enlisted Advisor career field. We could also talk about General Z's own 33-year career. Graduating from the University of Alaska, being commissioned through the OTS program in 1998, a command pilot with 4,400 flying hours on a varying array of aircraft, T-41, T-37, T-38, T-6, 130, KC-10, C-5, E-6B, I don't know where that came in, C-141, and the C-17. Assignments at the group, or squadron group, wing, headquarters, Air Force, and joint military levels, earning him 2 Bronze Stars, an Air Force Medal, and Army Combat Action Badge. But what I'd like to talk about for just a few minutes is when this gentleman and I came across paths back in March of 2000. Then Lieutenant Colonel Tim Zadalis took over command of the 7th Airlift Squadron. Go Blades. I'm going to tell you just a quick story. I'm going to go off script just a little bit. And within the first couple of months of taking over command of the squadron, Colonel Zadalis started the Pilot for a Day program. And during that Pilot for a Day program, we would bring in children and families and have them take them all around the base, show them the squadron, take them to the sim, take them out to an airplane. It was really rewarding, giving back to the community, and also just really enriching for the squadron. Every day on Friday, this would occur, and at the end of the day, after the family and the children had left, Colonel Z would always come around with a couple of libations up on the scheduling desk. No. Yes. And he would say, "Have one on me. You guys did a great job this week. And let's relax a little bit." Most of the time, he didn't have time to wait and have one with us. But then on one particular afternoon, we a group of loadmasters. There were no pilots in this group, surprisingly, but all loadmasters, ranging in rank from staff sergeant to tech sergeant. I think there was a couple of senior airmen sprinkled in there as well. We invited Colonel Z to stop and have a beverage with us. He agreed graciously and sat down, and we had started to have some one-on-one conversation with the old man, which you don't regularly do unless you're calling carpet time in front of the squadron commander. Ron Pierce could probably speak to that a little bit later on. Yeah, something about reading and rights. I don't know. You have to ask Ron. When he stopped in, he said he could only have one, and me being me, I would, when he would get almost finished with his beverage, I'd reach down, open another one, kind of slide it up behind the first one, and he'd get done, he'd look down, oh, where'd that come from? All right, I can only have one more. All right, keep going, sir, good conversation, right? And then he'd get almost done with that one, reach down, open another one quietly, slide it up behind the second one. Okay, now really, this is the last one that I can have. So he gets done with that one. Ironically, at that time we were out of beverages, and the idea was floated that we move the whole group down to the pub and deli. Anybody remember the pub and deli over in the dorms here before? He graciously declined and said he had some stuff to do with his wife Carol in the thrift shop. His wife was the manager of the thrift shop, and I think there was some painting or some reorganization going on at that time that he was going to help her with. So I said, sir, this doesn't happen very often, and we're really having some great conversation with you right now. Is there any chance at all that whatever you've got going on with the thrift shop can be moved either to later in the day on Saturday or maybe pushed to Sunday? He goes, the only person that's going to be able to answer that's Carol. And I said, well, get her on the phone. and so and he kind of looked at me, and about this time, there was some idle chatter going on. Everybody stopped and looked at me, and I was like, yeah, go ahead and get her on the phone. I'll get you a kitchen pass. And so, having never met this woman before in my entire life up to this point, Staff Sergeant Brian Tuning waited for Colonel Z to dial the phone. He got her on the phone and passed it off to me, and I said, Miss Zadalis, you don't have any idea who I am. I said, I'm Big Chew. I'm a loadmaster in your husband's squadron. We're having a great conversation with him after the Pilot for a Day program. We'd like to continue this discussion at a sports bar that's just down the street from the squadron, and we understand there's some stuff you got going on Saturday with the thrift shop. And she said, yes, that's true. I said, well, would it be anything you couldn't push off to later in the day on Saturday or possibly on Sunday? And she said, well, I don't see why not. And I said, okay, perfect. I said, well, here's our rules of engagement. I said, your husband is going to have a designated driver. We've already identified that individual, and we'll make sure he gets home safely. I said, we're not going to allow him to come home at sunrise, so he's going to be home at a reasonable hour. And then we can guarantee no hijinks. This is straight on the up and up. And she said, well, that sounds good to me. I said, okay. Appreciate your time. We'll have him home soon. He lived on base too, by the way, so that's why this was all happening. So I passed the phone back to him. All I hear from his end, or all we hear from his end is, hello? Yes? Yes? No, I'm not going to drive. No, I'm not going to be home late. Yes, still going to help with the thrift shop. Okay. Love you, bye. Click. Now, folks, I can honestly say I have never seen 7 loadmasters more stunned, speechless in my entire life. I was like, all right, let's wrap it up, boys. Let's head down to the pub and deli. About this time, our first shirt walks up, Mike Shea. Now, Mike Shea, for those of you who remember or don't know that name, he was a brand new first shirt at the time. He was this was his first assignment as a first shirt to the flying squadron. And oh, by the way, he had just come from, you guessed it, Security Forces Squadron. So he passed by the scheduling desk about the time we were all herding cats out in front of the squadron. He said, where are you guys going with the commander? Oh, we're going to the pub and deli. And again, I'll remind you, that's the bar in the dorms, by the way. So he's like, you're taking him where? And we're like, yeah, we're taking him to the pub and deli. Great conversation. We're going to have we've already got a designated driver. He's not going to get home late. His wife Carol's already gave him a kitchen pass. We're on our way. You want to go? And he goes, heck yeah, I'm going. So we all pile out, get into our respective vehicles. Down the road we went, not even a half mile. We get to the pub and deli. As soon as we get there, Colonel Z graciously purchases some more libations. And then we proceed to sit down around a long table. And there were some idle conversations going on all around our group. But what I noticed immediately was Colonel Z was taking his time one-on-one, individually, with each of those loadmasters in that group. And I'll tell you, there was genuine conversation going on there. So when it got down to me, I was about the last one he talked to that evening, one-on-one. And he looked at me and he said, all right, Chew. He goes, you got me here. What's going on? I said, nothing, sir. We're fine. He goes, come on, what's going on? I told him, I said, sir, don't ask a question you don't want to know the answer to. And when he said, I don't understand. I said, well, Sir, as a commander of a squadron, you have to understand, when stuff gets to you, anything that's going on in the squadron, if it's of a negative nature, when it gets to you, it's filtered about 5 or 6 times. So the real story probably doesn't actually reach you. And when it does, it's so minor that you don't even give it a second thought. I said, but we've got serious issues in the load section right now. And and I said, so if you want the honest answer, I'll give you the honest answer. Well, I'll have to throw in another little caveat. Mike Shea was right in his hip pocket and sitting right next to him and said, and his eyes are about this big around, like, what in the heck is getting ready to come out of this staff sergeant's mouth? So Colonel Z said, well, you know what? I wouldn't ask the question if I didn't want to know the answer. I said, all right, sir, here it comes. I gave him the honest answer. And there were some issues that we had. And surprisingly, within 2 weeks, all those issues were gone and resolved. Okay? So that's one of the personal stories that I can share. I can share many more, but that'll be in the hospitality room later on over vacation. This actually was I won't say it was the genesis. I'll say it might have been the catalyst that started the program. The General Z, I found out later, this was years later that I found this out. This led into a program that he deemed one-level training. And one-level training, I'll let him explain that just a little bit more here in a minute, but basically what General Z would do is on a very regular basis, he would go out to units and he would make sure all the leadership was gone and make sure he talked to just the youngest airmen and the youngest lieutenants in those squadrons and find out what's going on in that squadron. And I can't imagine, I can imagine that as, from a lieutenant colonel or colonel standpoint, but when a two-star general walks into your office and says, hey, how's things going? You probably were shaking a little bit. But I found out later that was a program that he started, and one of his execs, we had the opportunity to share that kitchen pest story with his exec at his last job. And that exec turned to me and he goes, I've always wondered where that started. And now I know. Now I know. So it is with great honor that I introduce to you Major General Tim Zadalis.
Okay, a couple of clarifications. Yeah, usually about 10% of the story is true. In this case, probably 90% was true. Carol was affectionately known as the War and Treasury Department. So we had to call the War and Treasury Department to get the kitchen pest. And all we had was milk. So we're all good to go. I got to tell you, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. I did get something though that I thought was very fitting. We'll talk a little bit about the 7th in a bit because it meant a lot to me. It started a lot for me in my career and the things that I did. But the first thing I want to say is my thanks to the Bill Cannon chapter because this event has been absolutely phenomenal. And I did something for this event, for this speaking engagement that I had never before done. And I showed up as early as I could on Thursday morning. And I was able to attend the briefings. Usually you get shuttled in, you do your speech, and you get shuttled out. I didn't want that anymore. Of course, I'm retired now, so I got a lot of free time. But I spent here, and I got to tell you, the first briefing, when Ray and Colonel Ani, they talked about Operation Baby Lift, I had heard them brief before, but it's absolutely as inspirational this week as I heard it as the first time. And Erin, I got a copy of her book that she co-wrote with Colonel Ani, and I'm thrilled that she signed it. I'm thrilled that Ray signed it, and I'm sure thrilled that she signed it. And I'm thrilled that Carrie signed it. Carrie, a young 3-year-old, 4-year-old on an airplane who vividly remembers the crash, who showed up and for one of the first times stood in front of a group and scared to death, and she told her story. like she's a seasoned pro. You were here to witness this at the PLA. And then there's something absolutely unexpected happened. Those of you who are here, Susan. Susan was in the accident, and Ray and her had crossed paths, not only at the accident site, but then days later. And that was incredibly powerful because that was a reunion that was 44 years in the making. And we saw it here at this gathering of Lowe's. And then I went into the next briefing and I saw Rocky. Rocky, who was a hostage in the Iran hostage situation back in the 80s. I remember that as a kid. I was in college at the time. I remembered how we in America were glued to the TVs. I remember the number 444 for how many days they were in captivity. It was the first time I had the pleasure of shaking hands with an Iran hostage. And I can't imagine 444 days in captivity, 30 plus days in the beginning tied to a chair. Imagine if that started for us today, the strength of his character, and he told his story. And then following him was Nick. Nick, a special operations, special forces, on the rescue team. The rescue didn't go as well as planned. But to see the professionalism in that man's eyes and the dedication that he had for those Americans who were hostages as he talked. That was the first time those two had been together, Rocky and Nick. That was a reunion, 39 years in the making. I've got to tell you, absolutely incredible. That's what you've done here. And I could talk about all of the other briefings you've had. I have never seen anything like this. And I, even as old as I am, drew incredible inspiration and incredible strength. And I hope each of you did for each of them too. Because for me, stories mean a lot. And those who are my mentors and those who I respect, I draw strength from them. In fact, my mentor, this is my father. Chu mentioned Chief Z. 1957, that's taken in a little farmhouse in a place called Two Creeks, Wisconsin. That man was my mentor, my best career counselor, my best advisor. He was a people person. I learned from him how to take care of airmen. I remember when I was in high school at Gwynn, Michigan, near K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base. My dad was a senior enlisted advisor at that time, and I remember he would come home from work, and I would tell by the way the door kind of shut kind of hard that it was must have been a rough day. And then he would go into the kitchen when Mom was in there, and the door would close, and I would listen, being the snoop that I was, and I would hear, "You'll never guess what that darn colonel did today." Now, darn was not the word that the chief uses, so I'll let you fill it in. But I would listen on, and it was always about not taking care of the people. And I swore that if I ever had the chance that people would ever work for me, I would not be that darn colonel, that darn person who didn't take care of his people. And over my career, I developed a philosophy. And it's actually really started in the 70s. We'll talk about the one-level training in just a second. But it got me thinking about the question of which is first, people versus mission. And there's been a lot of discussion over that. Now, I've heard it called, it's the chicken or the egg. Now, there are no chickens in the Air Force, so the question is it the eagle or the egg that came first? So I'm going to share something from you, and this is the professional military education piece of it. Throughout my career, which decided for me that the most important asset in our Air Force, the most important thing are the people. Now I realize that when I say the people are first, it puts me at odds, probably with some people in this room, and probably with some very battle-tested leaders that our nation has had. But let me tell you, before you cast judgment upon me, let me tell you the things that I think you need to do, things that I needed to do if I was a people-first commander. 5 simple things. And first, it's give your airmen the knowledge of what the mission is. That knowledge begins the day you walk into basic military training. It follows you through tech school. It follows you through every assignment, every PME course that you take. It is every experience on how what you do relates to the Air Force mission. If you don't give your troops the knowledge, they're going to fail. And just listening to Nick as he talked about Desert One and Eagle Claw, that man had the knowledge of what to do. The second thing that you owe your airmen are the tools to accomplish the mission. That tool may be a tie-down strap. That tool may be a $200+ million aircraft. But if you have airmen and you cannot put the right tools in their hands, and you as leaders are charged with that responsibility, all the knowledge in the world will be useless because they won't be able to apply it. The third thing that you have to do, if you're a people-first person, is you have to give your airmen the time to take those tools, that knowledge that you've given them, that knowledge that all Air Force leaders have given them, and you've got to train, allow them to train. You don't squander their time. You don't waste their time. You make sure that everything they do is focused on accomplishing that job, and you build upon it. The fourth thing you have to do is you have to take care of their families. Because you in a leadership position are eventually going to ask those airmen to take those tools, that knowledge that they've had, and you're going to deploy them. You're going to deploy them to a location far away, and that family's going to be left behind. And maybe taking care of the family is as simple as mowing the yard, or making sure the car is okay, or helping with the kids occasionally. But maybe taking care of that family is something much more significant. Because each of you who have worn the uniform and those who wear the uniform know our job comes with a significant risk. And there's a chance you may not come back. Our family is about taking care of the family forever. And Rocky with the folds of the folds is an example of that. It's taking care of those regardless of what happened. Now, for the longest time in my career, I had those four things. I never really talked about this because I had a sense that something was missing. And one day I was listening to a former McCord Wing commander, believe it or not, talk about the UCMJ of all things, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And he was talking about letters of LORs and the reprimand and Article 15s, and it dawned on me, there's two sides to holding your people accountable. Because the final thing for me in the fifth is accountability. Yeah, there is that side where there are those airmen who don't deserve to wear the uniform. We find them and we weed them out. But the other side of accountability, it's when our airmen do great things, do you put them out front? Do you write that best EPR that you possibly can for them? Do you put the extra 15, 30 minutes in? Do you submit them for the award? When the colonel comes by, do you put them out front to brief the process? Motivation and putting somebody in front and holding them accountable in a positive way is the most powerful force that I think we have in the Air Force. So I always told myself as a leader, there were 5 things. If I did those 5 things, I would be a people-first leader. And my belief was that if I did that, every airman under my command would put service before self in a way that I could never order them to do. Now, my goal tonight is not to convince you to be a people-first person, because you can be a mission-first person. Part of my career, I was very mission-first. But if you don't believe what I said, what I'd ask you to do is to go back to my first words where I said I'm a people-first person. And what if I said I'm a mission-first? My bet is those same 5 tenets that I just gave you apply if you're a mission-first. It doesn't matter. It's a circular argument. But it's about the people and it's about the mission and how you train and how you take care of them. Okay, so that's the PME piece of this. So now I want to get into a little bit of the story section. I found when I do events like this, the most powerful leadership lessons are through the stories that you have the opportunity to tell. And I'm going to share a couple of them with you that are very special with me, and one that I have not shared before, that is actually special to this group in a way. I'd like you to meet a gentleman. This is Lieutenant Colonel James Warren. I have to tell you a little bit about James Warren because he had an incredible career. He flew in World War II, he flew in Korea, and he flew in Vietnam. James Warren was also an original Tuskegee Airman. James Warren had retired and he lived in the Travis Air Force Base area. And when I was assigned to Travis as the vice commander, I got to meet James. And I got to know him and his wife. They were the most avid supporters of our airmen that I have ever met. And one day, I was chatting with James. And oh, by the way, I didn't mention, James is also a published author. If you haven't read his book, The Freeman Field Mutiny, you should. because it's as much of an airman story, it's as much of an Air Force story as it is a Tuskegee Airman story. You don't hear it talked about a lot, but we should. James would tell you he really didn't like the book, could have done a better job, and I told him I absolutely loved the book because it was a piece of our history, as dark and ugly as it was. So one day I was talking with James and I asked him, "Sir, everything you have been through in your life, what is the one thing, good or bad, that you will remember to your last days?" And the answer kind of surprised me. He said, "I want you to know that the thing that means the most to me is I was the navigator on the first C-141 that brought POWs out of Hanoi." And I thought to myself, what an incredible character of this man. After everything he has been through, the one thing that he will remember most is flying the first group of POWs out, doing something for others. Now, everybody in here who has time in the 141 knows that tail number of that aircraft. It's 177. It's a Hanoi taxi. It's an absolutely amazing aircraft. You've all seen the picture, you saw it earlier, of the POWs as the aircraft broke ground from Hanoi for the first time, and they're thrilled to be coming home. I filed that little data point in the back of my head, what that mission meant to James. And then you fast forward, maybe 4, maybe 5 months, I really can't remember. We had an air show at Travis. The wing commander was deployed and I was the acting wing commander. And we actually got one of the last flying C-141s to come to Travis. And you guessed it, it was 177. Now I walked up to it and having a lot of hours in the 141, decided, I gotta go tell James about this aircraft. This is the aircraft that meant the most to him in his career. But first, of course, being a 141 guy, I had to go on the airplane, I had to touch the yoke, do all those things that you normally do. So as I went into the aircraft, I noticed immediately in the cockpit, and at the entry to the cockpit, there were small brass plates, or small plates, engraved with the name of the person who flew the first mission out of Hanoi. And I looked over immediately at the navigator station, and there was Lieutenant Colonel James Warren's plaque. But I also noticed something else. I also noticed that every other one of the plaques had a signature above it, except for one. Guess which one? Colonel James Warren. And I went to the air show director that day and the team, and I said, we have something very special that we can do. Corwin Pauley, Major Corwin Pauley and his team. And I said, come up with a plan, let me know what it is. About an hour later, the air show stopped. And one of the vendors who had a nice Cadillac or a Lincoln went and picked up James out of a hangar. James is signing his book in a hangar just down the way from 177. And they brought him to the aircraft. They took him into the cockpit. And he signed above his plaque on that day as an original Tuskegee Airman. Now, I wasn't in the cockpit when he signed, but there was not a dry eye that came out of that aircraft. Now, this story actually doesn't end here. Now, remember, this began with a single question, and it goes to the power of the single question. James Warren got to meet the crew of 177 that day, and they became friends. And if you look at that picture, you'll notice that there's two signatures for James Warren there. There's one that's dated the last day of the last flight of the last C-141. It was tail number 177. James Warren sat in the navigator seat of the airplane that meant the most to him. I just recently found this picture of him smiling with the Hanoi taxi on the back seat of the left seat, the pilot's seat. So the lesson from this story is the one thing, you never know. We've heard it several times during this convention, the power of every airman has a story. Find those stories and seek them out. They're in this room right now. There are stories that are just as powerful as this one. This is 177 today. It's at the Air Force Museum. You can go inside it. Now, you can't get into the cockpit of the aircraft, but I want you to know that James Warren's signature is there and how it got there. I tell this story very often, partly because of the power of a single question, but I don't want James Warren's story forgotten, and I don't want his connection with 177 forgotten. So please, share that with others. And the questions that you ask that become something special, share that with others. That's part of our heritage. So now I'll shift a little bit more to what Chief talked about, my one-level training. I realized very early in my career, and it was actually while I was at the 7th here, that as I moved up the ladder, I lost connection with those that I needed to be connected with the most. And it was almost by accident in the 7th, and those are the 7th alumni who were here during that time, and there's quite a few in here. In fact, there's 4 of the original loadmasters from that time, from Ron to Chu to Jenny and Chief Spots. There's a group of them in here. It was a tough time. There were lots of challenges. And I remember Squadron Commander's office. Oh, Brian Sum, how could I forget Brian? Oh my gosh. Sorry, Brian, Chief. Did I miss anybody else? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Well, there's a lot of us here. I was a tea drinker, and the hot water was on the other side of the squadron. And I would go get water several times during the day. And I made a habit of stopping in the areas. I would stop in Stand-Eval, I would stop in Tactics, I would stop in Scheduling, I would stop at the CSS desk. At the first time, they thought I was kind of weird. The second and third time, they really opened up. I started to find out the challenges that they had. Because I realized as I moved up the ladder, there weren't a lot of things that I could do. The last thing that I did that I was good at was in the 141. And as I became higher up the ladder, I became a roadblock remover and a cheerleader for our airmen. But I learned the things that I could help them with, and I carried that throughout my career. And I can tell you, I have done so many things. I have polished dentures. Some retiree out there has dentures that I polished. I have given drugs out of a pharmacy. I am qualified on the Tunner. I've qualified on the AT. I have packed chutes for a heavy drop that actually did open, and then I'm going to do that. The Tunner one is actually pretty funny because it's actually a fairly complicated course. The hardest part is the driving test. And so my command chief and I took the test. And the rules are on the test, and if there's any port dogs in here, you can correct me, but if you knock over 2 cones, you fail. Yep. And there are cones all over this place. I knocked over 1 cone. Now, Chief Hansen, he knocked over 10 cones before he was even out of the parking spot. So he became Mario Andretti and Richard Petty racing around the track. I passed the test. So now I have a young airman who just instructed me how to drive this. And guess what I do? I pull out my driver's license. And I said, I need to have this, I need to have the Tunner put on my license. And he looks with big eyes at his supervisor and he goes, sir, I don't think I can do that. And I said, nope, I passed the test. You got to sign me off. And I could just see the panic in his eyes, and I said, okay. You can put whatever restriction you want on it. So he wrote down certified, wrote down the type and everything, and he said, cannot drive within 300 feet of a building, aircraft. The whole point of that was not for me to go out and learn to drive the Tunner. It was about me with a young airman learning the challenges that they had. There's a few folks here out at the 86. One of the last ones I did was with the dental clinic. And those of you who knew me in Germany know I had braces. I went and made my own retainer with the airmen down in the, and actually it was a German national in the dental clinic. And what I noticed from that was 2 airmen on a computer struggling through DTS trying to do a voucher. That was why I was there, to see that, not to make a retainer. Now, truth be known, I have a cool retainer because it's green and gold and I'm a Green Bay Packer fan. So I have the coolest retainer here. But that's why I did those type of things. I have swapped the blue juice in airplanes. I have changed brakes in airplanes. I cannot tell you, I don't say I dropped the C-17 engine, but we took one off the wing. It was an 8-hour job. I loved every minute of that because it kept me grounded to what was important in the Air Force. In fact, the very last day of my career, the day before my retirement, I snuck out of the office at, noon, 1300, and nobody knew where I went. And I went off to do my one last time with the airmen. This day we had chosen EOD, the Explosive Ordnance Disposal. I had never been with them, and I went down there, and there was a chief select there, and we started the day in a hall, in a small room, where they honored the fallen EOD airmen, those who had given their lives in Iraq and Afghanistan, attempting to defuse the IEDs that have taken so many lives. There were 12 faces on that wall. And then we went out, and I had 2 young airmen assigned to me. Now, I was the guy in the big suit, the heavy suit. I had the robot that they drove up next to me, and I was to go up to the IED, and they were going to talk to me in my right ear and tell me what to do. And their instructor is watching them, evaluating them with everything they do. And I had the instructor in the left ear. And I get down there, and for a half hour I worked as they looked at this thing over to defuse the thing. And it was not an easy task. It was an incredibly difficult task. And I gained such respect for those 2 young airmen. And as I get done pulling it out of the ground, now I have to collect the evidence. All of a sudden I hear the instructor in the other earpiece, and he says, "They're going to have you do this next. You're going to hear a bang. I want you to scream and then just fall over." A secondary IED. This was the test for the 2 young airmen. Sure, I did exactly what they said, and there was a small pop, boom, and I yelled, and I fell over backwards. And those young airmen were probably 200 yards behind me. And all of the training that they had the knowledge, they had the tools, and they had the time. They sprinted forward. They pulled this quick release on the suit. They had me out of it within seconds and had drugged me to safety. And that ended our day. And I walked back to my office, and there were a couple of folks in there from protocol, because the next morning was my retirement. And one of them is here. Where's Master Sergeant Greg Flores? You're here? Right here. Was sitting in my office along with another young airman, and to talk about the retirement ceremony. And I said, "I got to tell you what I just did. It was so cool. We were doing this. I had so much fun." And the young female airman, she, and as I was telling them about the wall, she goes, "I joined the Air Force because of one picture on the wall. It's my brother." Her brother lost his life defusing IED in Afghanistan, and she joined the Air Force. I've never said her name before because I wasn't sure, but Greg helped me. It's Tech Sergeant Candace Bell White. I will never forget that. I will never forget how they ended the career. And it all begins right where it came from. It's getting to know your airmen. Now, what I haven't talked about is a lot of my flying career and the load masters and the crew, the back-end crews that I've known. There are so many men and women throughout my career who have made a difference. The incredible professionals that are back there. They gave me the respect for the hard work and the importance of what happens in the back of an airplane. I'll share one story with you, and this one may be a little bit tough for some of you in here. But a few years ago, we lost a C-130 in Afghanistan. I was the vice commander at Ramstein. And when the airplane came through Ramstein with the transfer cases with these 11 American heroes on it, the entire 37th Squadron was on the flight line to say a final farewell. And after the transfer cases were loaded on the C-17, there was a small group I took out to the aircraft. Individuals who had a connection and knew people on the aircraft. It was incredibly emotional, and it was a part of the healing process for them. And what I noticed when I got on the aircraft, I had not really, I'll say I had noticed a million times before in my career, that everything was perfect in that cargo compartment. There were 11 transfer cases. Every crease on the flag was absolutely perfect. Every cargo strap was a new cargo strap. Every cargo strap was just perfect. And the thing that I remember the most and had the biggest impact on me was the ends of the cargo strap were curled and spiraled, every one exactly the same. That's the professionalism that you bring to the United States Air Force. I will never forget that strap. I have flown those missions, repatriation missions, and throughout my career. But that one time, looking down and seeing that typifies for me the professionals you are. Because even the smallest detail doesn't go unnoticed. I got back to my office that afternoon, or early that morning, and I typed up an email. And every 4-star's name that I could get, I sent it to them. And I described what I saw in the cargo compartment. Because between the port dogs and the loadmasters in the back of that aircraft, we honored our heroes. I thank you for doing that. I thank you for the professionalism every day, what you do. I'll finish with one last story from Afghanistan. And it is one that I often finish with. I had a job in Afghanistan where I did air planning. I worked with the regional ground commanders to make sure they had all the air support they needed. But I also had another job. Whenever there was an allegation of civilian casualties or a fratricide or a Pakistan border incident, I had a team of 12 that would go out into the field. One late evening, I got the call in the upper helmet that there's been an allegation. I had to get my team out there because we had to get ahead of the Taliban press because they were filling the airways with lies. And I had a routine with my team that I always did. And the first thing I did as I jumped on the C-130 is I had the weapon system video, the gun camera footage, and you've seen it all the time. And I would watch it over and over again, trying to determine what happened and what I could gather from it. What I saw in that video was a group of Marines, young Marines, 7 of them, a small patrol, that was actually crossing through a fairly open area when they were ambushed by 3 sites. And I looked at the video and I watched the puffs of dirt popping up around these Marines. Now there was no air cover planned for them that day because it was supposed to be a fairly benign, straightforward mission. But the Air Force got an asset overhead. And that was the video I was watching. And I watched as this crew methodically looked at all the 3 sites, decided which one was the worst, and with one single rocket took out that site, and the other 2 scattered, and the Marines escaped. The next morning at about 6 a.m., I had already made my way with my team into the upper helmet, and I met that young man who led that patrol. He was a 2nd lieutenant. He had been in the Marine Corps about 8 months. And I already knew that there was no valid civilian casualty allegations, but I needed to talk to him. And as we were talking, I asked one of the dumbest questions that I have ever asked. Because I looked down at his helmet, I noticed his night vision goggle bracket was bent back and there was a crease in the front of his helmet. And I said, "Did that happen last night?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "My Marines and I could not get any lower in the dirt." He said, "All we wanted was somebody to make it stop. Somebody to make it stop." And he said, "I don't know who they were, but please tell them thank you." Now that one day, it happened to be a remotely piloted aircraft that was overhead with a single Hellfire mission. And it was actually operated by a crew back in the States. And he said, "Please tell them thank you." That thank you is for all of us. There have been a million thank yous before that one. There will be a million after. You who have the uniform on now bear the burden of earning those thank yous. And I'm so proud to have been a part of the military, but I'm equally more proud of each and every one of you who have stepped forward to serve, because you are earning those thank yous for freedom, those thank yous from me for the attention to detail for our fallen. I salute each and every one of you, and it has been an honor for me to address this group, share a little bit of my life, a few of my stories, a little philosophy, but mostly to spend 3 great days with you. Thank you.
Morning, Coach.
Not yet. Almost. General Zadalis, thank you very much for your inspirational words, guidance, and mentorship to all of our Loadmasters here and their families in attendance this evening. Sure means a lot to everybody. At this time, I would like to invite General Zadalis and the PLA National President, Kathy Disley, to the stage for the presentation of the William Bill Cannon Loadmaster of the Year presentations for 2017 and 2018. So I'll start with the Airman winner for 2017. Senior Airman Alexander Gorhoff distinguished himself as a C-130J Loadmaster, 40th Airlift Squadron, Dallas Air Force Base, Texas, from 1 January 2017 to 31 December 2017. During this period, Airman Gorhoff, the Advanced Airlift Tactics Training Course, honing his aircraft knowledge and tactics, and trained 14 deployers on current tactics. Accepting this award for Airman Gorhoff is the Central Vice President, Chief Master Sergeant Trevor Smith. Next, 2017 NCO Award winner, Tech Sergeant Lucille Barrera, distinguished herself as a C-130J Loadmaster Instructor, 40th Airlift Squadron, Dallas Air Force Base, Texas, from 1 January 2017 to 31 December 2017. During this period, Sergeant Barrera was selected as the 317th Operations Group Lance P. Sijon Award winner and Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year. Additionally, Sergeant Barrera was ramp coordinator supporting operations in and around the Horn of Africa, allowing for safe operations of 108 combat missions supporting 2,000 personnel in the air. Next, we have the 2017 Senior NCO Award winner, Master Sergeant James Johns, distinguished himself as a C-130J Loadmaster and Squadron Operations Superintendent, 41st Airlift Squadron, Little Rock Air Force Base, Arkansas, from 1 January 2017 to 31 December 2017. During this period, Sergeant Johns designed and developed a flood relief stage integrating 86 air medical evacuation personnel with 6 air crew and aircraft. Accepting for Sergeant James on his behalf is Central Vice President Trevor Smith. Next, we have the 2017 Civilian Award winner, Mr. Eric Kappa, distinguished himself as a B-737 Loadmaster and Transportation Specialist for the Department of Energy, Kirkland Air Force Base, New Mexico, from 1 January 2017 to 31 December 2017. During this period, Mr. Kappa planned and developed specific tie-down procedures for classified unique special cargoes and classified components carried by the B-737 in support of the Department of Energy and Department of Defense missions. Next, we have the 2018 Airman Award winner, Senior Airman Danielle Armstrong, distinguished herself as C-17 Formal Training Unit Instructor, 58th Airlift Squadron, Altus Air Force Base, Oklahoma, from 1 January 2018 to 31 December 2018. During this period, Airman Armstrong upgraded to instructor, making her the only E-4 C-17 Formal Training Unit Instructor. Additionally, Airman Armstrong volunteered for a CENTCOM deployment where she flew 47 combat sorties, airlifting 801 passengers and 2.8 million pounds of cargo. Accepting on Airman Daniel Armstrong's behalf is Sergeant Siobhan Wright. 2018 NCO award winner, Technical Sergeant Wayne Smith, distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service to the United States and Special Operations Loadmaster, 618th Operations Center, Air Mobility Command, Scott Air Force Base, Illinois. In this key capacity, Sergeant Smith directed and integrated Special Operations Forces contingency plans into the Department of Defense's largest mobility force, supporting the Secretary of Defense and Joint Chiefs of Staff security objectives. Furthermore, Sergeant Smith, as one of the C-17A Special Operations Loadmaster Planner, Sergeant Smith led weapons system integration in a $3 million United States Special Operations Command exercise.
Congratulations. It's pros like that why we do the things we do for our. Thank you.
And finally, the 2018 Senior NCO Award winner, Master Sergeant Gregory Flores, distinguished himself as Operations Superintendent, 37th Airlift Squadron, Ramstein Air Force Base, Germany, from 1 January 2018 to 31 December 2018. During this period, Sergeant Flores expertly led 75 loadmasters to accomplish 533 operational missions, which ensured 17,000 passengers, 87 patients, and 21,000 tons of cargo were airlifted and produced a 98% mission effective rate for 2 combatant commanders. Additionally, Sergeant Flores led the United States Air Force and Europe's first ever career enlisted aviator senior leader course. Thank you, General Zadalis, Kathy, and all the award winners. One final round of applause for all. Now we'd like to invite to the stage one of the Pathfinder ATA Hall of Fame inductees, Chief Master Sergeant retired Mike Welch.
You know, I was with Bill in '88 when I got out of the Air Force. I went to McDonnell Douglas, which the first time I met Marion Cannon. And he had a vision. The PAC shows 1997 established the Accord, and that's true. That's when it officially began. But in 1995, Bill had just finished promoting the ALF Tanker Association chapter, C-17 chapter in Long Beach. And he was the president, of course. He started it, so he became the president. And he just finished all that. He got that out of the way, and what have you. Of course, Ted Venturini, godfather of C-17, was getting ready to retire in 1995. And we had a big meeting out there in Long Beach. Oh, I think we had about 30 loadmasters there. Al Capone was one of them. I don't think anybody else in here was there. But anyways, Bill's vision was to establish the PLA. And, he'd probably be very happy today to see all these awards, because that wasn't his vision. He just didn't think that far ahead. But it was so good to see all these awards and so forth. His vision was to keep the legacy of the Loadmasters going. And that's what it's all about. I just recently met 3 young people from the 7th. Where are you? I think you're right here. They just graduated from Altus. We have Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z. I don't know what they are. Generation AA, I guess. I got a couple of Ys at home that are still in college. But to see the camaraderie and the people keeping this legacy alive, that's what it's about. If somebody says to you, what can a PLA do for me? You say, hey, it's not about what you can do for you. Keep the legacy alive. It's the greatest career field. I think if you talk to any retiree that went through 20 plus years, it's the greatest career field in the world. You get to see the world, you get paid for it. So the last thing I want to say is, Marion, I don't know if we'd have seen this 22 years ago, but Marion Campbell's, she was with me when I got inducted in the ALF Tanker Association because Bill had passed away. Stand up, Marion. And there was 6 of us put into the Hall of Fame because of the work we did in the C-17. And at the time, we had no idea what in the world we were doing. It was just kind of fly by it. They took the best 130s, 141, C5 people, put them all together, and incorporated all those things that used to bug us as load vessels. And today, from everything I've seen or heard or news, a lot of that has come circle around to make sure that the airplane is out there, it's doing the job that needs to be done. And appreciate being able to get a chance to say a few things on, where it really started. And when Bill retired, he came up with McCord when he's got the chapter activated through the 501c process and all that. And he did a great job. And so keep the legacy going. Don't ever let it die, because you're truly part of a camaraderie of people that will always exist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate those inspiring words. Quick administrative note before we wrap things up for the evening. I got kind of a on-the-fly notice from Mr. Vic Freeland that his wife graciously was the one that made all these centerpieces on these tables that you see before us tonight. The plan originally was there was going to be a star underneath one of your small plates. Don't know if it was the coffee plate or coffee cup plate or your dinner roll plate or what. The idea is to take those with you when you go. If you happen to have one of those plates with a star on it, you're the lucky recipient of the center table piece. If nobody finds a star, then we can probably raffle them off. We've got some raffle tickets left over. Frank? No? All right, got it.
Just give them to Levi.
Yeah, get them. Levi's got two
We don't know.
They took some of the stuff away, Charles,
Got a couple more words from some folks here. Is there Ed Olson, you come up?
You're on.
Right, that's the only guy that can talk longer than you.
Is that even possible?
You can't have a ceremony without a good joke.
Keep it clean, Harold.
It's a long message, folks. So, anyway, a long time ago, I became a load master 66 years ago and ran the 124s. And people that have been aboard 124 knows in the back there was a honey bun. And that was it. They used to put them up in the crew compartment that was designed with a little bathroom up there. And they put a hasp on the door. They used it for the pilot's baggage. So that toilet came out. So well, the back was, we had the policy in troop carrier. The guy that used it first had to clean it out. There was no fleet service where we went. So most people tried to hold it. We were flying cross country one day, and I was half asleep, and I noticed the pilot major tiptoed back. He went back and used the honey bucket. Well, we landed somewhere in Pennsylvania. There was no fleet service, of course. And the major come down. We landed, and I said, "Sir, I think you use a honey bucket." And Paulie said, "You got to clean that out." He says, "I'm a major, and you're a two-striper. You know what's going to happen." So, anyway, I had to clean that thing out. A couple weeks later, another trip to the same major. I told the crew chief about it. We got to do something about this honey bucket business. And he says, "I'll fix it." Well, you got safety wire out. He wired the lid down shut. So, yeah. This major had regular ball movements halfway. He comes down, creeping up, sneaking across the floor, back to the honey bucket. And he tried to open the wired shut. So we came back out. I was one eye open and fell asleep in my funny, but when he came by, I was alert. He said, "Airman, that honey bucket's wired shut and you got wire cutters." I said, "Yes, sir. I've got a brand new pair of knives. Let me have them." I said, $10. Anyway, he said, "Well, this is terrible. What do you do when you got to go?" I said, "Load masters can hold it." What do the engineers do? They go with their pants. What does the navigator do? He brings his lunchbox back, his white lunchbox, and he goes in there. What happens to it? We give it back to him. really happened. Later on, Major Stewart became LC Stewart, the squadron commander. We got along great. I'd like to talk about 124. I can talk for hours, but I know we got a program here. I just want to say, I had 27 years of flying, and I got scared many times. But probably one of them was coming back from Brazil, the Gulf of Mexico. We cleared our turbines. We fell 6,000 feet. That 124 was tore up so bad, we lost flaps, sheet metal broke, and everything else. We landed in Brooklyn and stayed there 6 months getting repaired. And I ended up hit my head on the hoist rails and came back down and hit the seat. I was bruised with the head and the butt. I was scared, number one. I think the next time I got scared was on Operation Shoehorn, Alaska. We pulled into Utopia Creek, 17-degree slope on a dirt runway to 124. When you land, you got to keep climbing power on the airplane to get to the top, so you stop, you're done for. So it was icy and snowing. And we got to the top, there was a clearance area about the size of 3 football fields. And turned the airplane around, offload, take off. Well, I had a D8 cat, or 55,000 pounds. As soon as we landed, I kicked off 4 chains. And all I had left was 1 forward and 1 aft. Yeah, the scanner was getting out up front. All of a sudden, he hollered, "Hang on, we're going." The airplane was sliding up the mountain. There was a certain slope there for drainage. It was all icy. We were going down the hill. So the pilot cranked the power tube away it went. I was sitting behind that D8 cat with 1 chain in each direction. I was scared. I think I was scared in 1956. We were taking off in Peterson Field, Colorado, in the snow and ice on an airdrop mission. And about 9 o'clock in the morning, and the sun broke out. The pilot said, he had a hangover anyway. He said, "I can't see it, so you got a pair of glasses." I said, "Yeah, I got some. Well, bring them up here." So I took my sunglasses out and gave it to him. Oh, that's better. So down the runway, he lifts off. Left ear hits a snowbank, 45-degree angle. We hit the snow and bounced. The tower called and said, "You're headed for the GCA shack." Max reverse, all of a sudden, bang. We had a culvert. The nose gear sheared, the props hit the ground. The airplane was up like that. And I was scared. We had everything set for airdrop. Had pallets inside, airdrop platforms, no pallets underneath. And 3 airport guys in the back, they slid down the escape ropes to get out. And 2 of them burned their hands. That was the only casualty, so we lucked out. But I was scared. 10 years later, I was in Recife, Brazil. I 124 we were parked. And the guy that was a scanner up there when we crashed, came walking up the ramp, good friend, he said, "Yeah, guess what tail number I got? The same airplane we crashed on." 76 out of 100. That was in 66, but we crashed in 1956 at Peterson Field. The airplane was recovered and restored. That was number 2. I got scared another time. I got scared, but I ended up being very grateful. I became very religious in 1975.
All right, 30 seconds, Harold. Kevin's beating me up over here.
Anyway, This was a reverse thing. It wasn't, I was scared. Then later, we left Clark. We had 24 hours crew rest. We left Clark. We're already tired. But Canada, we called it. This was 141. And it was scheduled for a quick stop on the McCord. And I told the engineers, this is crazy. We never do this. He said, yeah, we're all tired. And so when I got up, I thought, do I really want to go or not? But I heard a voice say, get off the plane. Get off. And so I grabbed my bags and I got off. Went to command post with the pilot, and I tried to talk about going. And there were 3 navigators on the aircraft. Colonel Burns is the wing navigator. And he got in Thailand and back. He was really tired. And I said, sir, you gotta give it up. Let's crew rest. You know, I gotta get home. I got a scout meeting. He was a scoutmaster. So I went to bed. They took off. 10 hours later, they hit Mount Constance, the Olympics. And that I wasn't a religious person, but somebody told me to get off. And that made a believer out of me. That took care of all the scares. And I'm still here. Thank God. But let me tell you, there's nothing like loadmasters. I'm proud to have been one. I'm still a loadmaster. And you guys are, there are big shots in here that did a lot more than I did, but I had fun.
Hey, Mark Lewis, where you at? Raise your hand. Oh, you waiting up? Well, I think I've met my match as far as storytelling. Harold will be in the hospitality suite if anybody wants to catch up with him on some more of those stories, because I'm sure they're just as entertaining. Our final speaker this evening is our national president, Madam El Presidente, Kathy Disney.
So I don't have a speech. He said speaker. I'm like, nope. Just want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your lives to come out and support this organization. General Zadalis, thank you for your words and stories. This whole last few days has been some great stories. It definitely reflects our past, our present, and where we're headed in the future. Our sponsors, who would have guessed, 20, 30, 40 years ago that we would be using little goggles. I never did get to put them on. But for loadmaster training, that's just amazing. And that's where the future is going. For pilot training, all of our Boeing guys in here, I don't want to disappoint you that, maybe someday you might be out of business because some little cheaper goggle might put that multi-billion-dollar sim out of business, but it may happen. I will be fine when it happens, but it's just amazing where we've been, where we're at today, and where our future holds. And it's amazing. It's been an amazing career for me. I would have never guessed when I was growing up as a kid. I have no military in my family. I would have never guessed when the TI at Lackland said, "You want to travel? You want to be a loadmaster?" I had no clue what that is. I think Brian's son probably even remembers me going, "What am I supposed to do? What is this job about?" I had no clue. But it's been an amazing experience. I got to meet wonderful people, like each and every one of you, from, my goodness, Al Capone. How long have you been doing this job? Or did you start? This is just, I don't know, to me it's just mind-boggling. And I absolutely appreciate being in this position. JP Salisbury's like, Kathy, PLA, I'm like, I have no clue what. Marion, thank you and your family for being here. There's spouses in the audience. You probably had no clue when Bill Cannon said, I'm going to start this organization, that you were going to spend almost 20 years as secretary. So thank you for being by his side and for your family as well. The sponsors, thank you. I've got a whole list. I know I'll forget somebody, but everybody that supports this organization, absolutely appreciate it. Going forward, every year it just seems to get bigger and better as we work through things like the gathering, the hosting. So the next gathering, 2021, Nicole McGrady in the March chapter has volunteered to host it. Probably like, I don't know, maybe San Diego area, but anyway, the March chapters volunteered to host it.
They said we could all stay at Mike Welsh's house.
I like that. Again, Bill Cannon chapter, thank you guys. And we've had several chapter name changes. Absolutely the Northwest chapter, this is so appropriate. Got a name, or a street named after him, a chapter and a whole entire national organization named after Bill Cannon. It says a lot. And ATA Hall of Famers. Thank you guys. I just want to say thank you. Is anybody up next? Safe travels back home. That's all I got. And I just can't see it.
This concludes the festivities. Hospitality suite room 400 on the same level will be open momentarily.